Egypt's political instability took a heavy toll on the country's economy. For many years, the northern city of Port Said flourished as a free zone port, making it attractive for real estate investors. It's also been a cultural center for Egypt, its buildings reflecting the city's history through time. But now, with the lack of security and municipal supervision, many residents fear Port Said could be losing its identity. Ian Lee visited the coastal city to see what steps are being taken to protect its heritage.
It's the gateway from Europe to Asia. Port Said sits at the northern tip of the Suez Canal. But this city is more than a commercial hub. It's an architectural wonder, once called the cultural face of Egypt. Walking down the streets is a trip back through time. There's an old Woolworths and buildings of Italian, French, and Greek influence. But it's also a trip through neglect and decay, partly because of a law that kept rent down for nearly 60 years.
The buildings are falling one after the other, either by being destroyed by contractors or owners who, unfortunately, because of the law that was implemented in the 50s, they cannot afford to maintain the buildings.
Pierre Alfaroba is the director of Alliance Francaise in Port Said. Rent control means an apartment may just cost a few dollars a month, not nearly enough for a building's upkeep. His mission is to preserve the hundreds of historical buildings, like the former Greek Cultural Center. This landmark, once set for demolition, has been reprieved. But while the building looks sturdy on the outside, inside is a different story. The staircase has started falling apart, he says. There is no point in restoration because the building is empty. Developer Tamer El Hamzawi shows us around what remains of the cultural center. Cracks run up the walls, plaster falls from the ceiling. There are holes in the floor. El Hamzawi wants to rip it down and put up a larger apartment building. For now, he can't. Over 500 buildings are on a historical registry, supposedly safe from demolition. But there's a loophole activists say developers are using to tear down these structures. There is corruption. Contractors give bribes to the people with the authority to make decisions about these buildings, says Rania Salem. Then they sign permits saying the building is unsafe, which allows for the demolition of the building. The government denies there are any backroom deals. Strapped for cash, government engineer Sahar Lotfi says money to preserve the buildings will have to come from outside. UNESCO can help financially, technically, and morally to preserve these buildings, she says. In this case, there will be, of course, a plan by the government. Then no one will spare any effort to preserve these buildings. But in these difficult times, preserving architectural heritage comes way down the list of most Egyptians' priorities. If UNESCO doesn't adopt Port Said as a World Heritage Site, its fading splendors will likely crumble, giving way to not-so-glamorous replacements. For Marketplace Middle East, Ian Lee in Port Said, Egypt.
From preserving historical architecture to building brand new ones, Dubai made headlines this week. The Emirate boasts the world's biggest mall, but announced plans to build the world's next biggest mall. It's going to be part of the Mohammed bin Rashid city, named after the ruler of Dubai. The city will also include a huge public park, hotels, and a Universal Studios entertainment center. Although details of the cost and the timescale are not still clear, the developers Emaar and Dubai Holding hope the massive project will attract some 80 million people each year. Also this week, Hamas announced that Israel's 8-day bombardment on Gaza will cost $1.2 billion in direct and indirect damages. The cross-border fighting ended with a ceasefire, but left more than 160 dead in Gaza and 6 in Israel. Hamas says 200 homes were destroyed and 8,000 buildings were partially destroyed. Now, for more about the program or to see those stories again, visit our website, cnn.com/MME, or you can check out our webpage in Arabic as well, arabic.cnn.com/MME. And that's it for this edition of CNN Marketplace Middle East. I'm John Defterios. Thanks for watching.